Right, be honest. How many times have you thought about that Lucas Bergvall strike? How many times have you re-watched that? Oh my word, if that went in. It could have made the difference. Unfortunately, it didn't, and it was Spurs 1, Frankfurt 1 last night. We're going to come on and talk about Lucas Bergvall because once again last night the kid showed why his ceiling is getting higher and higher every week. Welcome back to the Bowman YouTube channel. I hope you guys are doing well. Make sure to subscribe if you're new. Make sure to get involved, like the video, get involved in the comments and such. I can't help but feel a little bit deflated after last night. And I've kind of had a little bit of time to gather my thoughts. I'm doing this video the day after the game. It's, what now, 6 o'clock at the time I'm recording this. So I've had a lot of time to kind of think about it, and I just can't help but feel encouraged by the performance, but also a little bit deflated by the result. It really felt like we needed to win that, in my opinion. Frankfurt's home record in Europe is good. I think they're unbeaten in the last 7 or 8 games. I think English sides haven't got a great record there recently. And there were really big moments for Tottenham in that second half. And look, you can't fault the boys for the way they played. You can't fault Ange, I think, for the way that he set the team up to hurt Frankfurt. We can talk about the team itself in terms of the personnel, but we controlled most of the game. I thought, to be fair to Frankfurt, I thought for large parts of that first half, they were quite comfortable in almost that 4-4-2 block that they were playing in, kind of almost 2 banks of 4 with Ekatike and Gertz are kind of almost as the front two. They were quite comfortable to drop back into that shape, and Spurs almost found it hard to find space in between the lines. That's why I think Maddison was dropping deeper a lot of the time. You can't quite see it there. Maddison was dropping deeper to pick up the ball. Again, he was the most advanced of the midfielders, but he was notably dropping deep, which I don't mind him doing that, to be fair, and I'm going to talk about why in a minute with Bergvall's role. But yeah, fine margins, I think, is the big thing for Tottenham last night. Ange Postecoglou made a comment after the game saying that I think, and he said it today in the press conference as well, it's almost like the football gods have changed their number because I've tried to reach out to them and they're not doing us any favours. And they weren't on our side last night, but look, you've got to do more to make the difference. And I think one thing that frustrated me with Ange before we kind of get on to going through the goals and a bit of Lucas Bergvall's performance as well, I think one thing that frustrated me in terms of really capitalising on this momentum that we built up, and you can kind of say, well, if Spurs were totally on top, you don't make a change. You don't change what's working well, and maybe a goal was inevitable, but ultimately that goal didn't come. I thought he was probably a little bit too slow to make the substitutions, and that's been a criticism of mine of Ange for a while now. I thought Son was super ineffective. I know he came into the game a little bit more in the second half, and again, I don't think the role, like we've spoken about so many times before, necessarily suited him. You can see there with Udogie and Son's kind of average positions, it felt like Son was kind of getting in Udogie's way at times. That link-up wasn't necessarily there. If Udogie is playing out here predominantly and kind of going round Son, which he was a lot of the time, he was picking up central positions in build-up a fair bit, but he was staying that little bit wider. I want to see Son coming inside more. I don't want to see him out there hugging the touchline. And I just felt that he was super, super ineffective. But I thought on a positive note, bearing in mind, I think a lot of eyebrows were raised from a Spurs fan's perspective when we didn't see Jed Spence in the lineup. I thought Destiny Udogie had a really good game. I thought he had a really good game. It's the sharpest I think he's looked. It's the fittest I think he's looked since he's been back. Obviously went off with an injury, but it was just cramp, Ange Postecoglou said, which is obviously positive. And yeah, look, I think a lot of our fans have kind of almost been a little bit too quick to write off Udogie. There's been kind of there was the rumours of Manchester City being interested in him. I think a lot of fans were almost saying they'd kind of cash in, which I don't really agree with, to be honest. But fans are entitled to how they feel. But yeah, Son I thought was ineffective yesterday. And I would have liked to have seen a change made on that left-hand side earlier, either Odegaard, because again, if you're gonna have your winger stand tight to the touchline like that, you need them to have the bravery and the confidence to beat a man, and Sonny just doesn't really have that right now. I felt like every time he sort of got it out there, just recycling possession, cutting back, wasn't willing to take on the man, stand him up and do something. And I think obviously Odegaard didn't come on, and there was the rumours of the muscle tightness, even though he was on the bench, and even tell someone who's a bit more hungry to kind of have a run in this team and prove himself. I think that substitution probably should have happened early because he's got a good delivery out there from out there. Tell Odegaard knows how to take his man on, even though I thought it was quite poor when he came on against Southampton on Sunday. I just would have liked to have seen that change earlier to really capitalise on what we were doing and really continue to put pressure on Frankfurt. But I thought there were positives other than that, and I think you can take a lot out of the performance. I think it's just a bit flat going into next week because Spurs' away record is poor in Europe. Frankfurt's home record is good in Europe, and it really felt like there were chances there for us. Obviously, this was the first goal. Maddison loses it. I don't think we're quick enough maybe to try and get that ball back. Wasn't great for Maddison, obviously, who I think his first half performance divided a bit of opinion. I thought he was pretty good. I thought he did really well for the goal, which we'll kind of come on to. I think it's frustrating as well with this goal because we've seen this so many times this season. Get caught out high the pitch, one ball out to the winger who isolates Porro one-on-one. Obviously, Ekitike in this instance, it very much reminded me of the Sancho goal against Tottenham. And it's poor. It's poor. You know, Porro, I think, is probably a little bit too easy showing him inside there, but it's... I mean, you don't feel like this at the time, especially when you're at the ground, sitting there at the game, when you've just gone 1-0 down in the European quarter-final. You can't appreciate the finish. It's a ridiculous finish. It is a ridiculous finish from Ekitike. Low-driven, curling shot into the back of the net. But it's, again, what happens before that. Just a little bit sloppy on the ball to lose it. Not enough players maybe backing Maddison up there to kind of give him an option. But he loses it, tries to take the man out of the game. That's the risk sometimes. Spurs don't recover it quick enough, one ball out, and next thing you know, it's in the back of the net. But Spurs obviously responded. Sonny dinking this ball in behind to Solanke. Good movement from Dom, who's struggling at the moment, I think, a little bit. He works his nuts off. He really, really does. And I think he doesn't really get enough service in this team. I think he hasn't had enough service for a while. But I also think that he's got to do more to make himself a bit more of a presence in the box. I think there's a lot of factors at play with Solanke as to why he hasn't really hit the same heights as he did in the first half of the season since he's come back from injury. But this was really good, intelligent centre-forward play, making that run in behind, holding it up. And this was really good from Maddison. Really, really good. Shifts it so quickly, drops the shoulder, beats the man. And it's that touch with his left foot there to get him away from the defender so quickly. Excellent cutback. Excellent finish. Absolutely fantastic response. And I think we did well after that. I think there was a few hiccups, a few moments in that first half. There was a moment where Spurs were very isolated on the counter-attack. Frankfurt had men over. It was like a 5v4 towards the end of that second half. And we very nearly conceded from it. Far too open. We find ourselves in those situations and far too often as well. But second half, it was all Tottenham. It was all Tottenham. And that is, again, reflected, as you can kind of see in the momentum there. We had chance after chance during this period of the game where it kind of all started with Bergvall hitting the bar, really. And again, I kind of wanted to touch on Bergvall from kind of here on out for the rest of for this kind of next section of the video, because I think this sums up what he's done, his game is about so well, right? So you see him, obviously, here. Let's just make that white, actually. You see him, obviously, here. You'll still get into grips with this new tactics ball. You see him here. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4 players kind of keeping an eye, 5 players in that kind of network around him, keeping an eye on what he wants to do. And here, as it moves on, you can kind of see his body shape already. You know exactly what he wants to do. He wants to turn into this space. He wants to take these 2 players out the game. He wants to turn into that space. And that's what he does so well. And also because his peripheral vision and his scanning is so good. He knows if he gets that body movement right, no matter the pressure that he is under, he can get away from these 2. He's good enough to just kind of turn into this space under pressure and get away. And that's exactly what he does. He takes this little touch, and again, got 3 men around him. 3 men around him kind of in this sort of zone. But again, he's so confident and so composed and so calm on the ball with his back to these 2 players as well. Takes that little touch, and he's so quick to then just shift it out of his feet under pressure to drive into here where he can get that shot off. He's away from them, and look at the space that it kind of opens up. He settles himself down, and it's just unbelievably unlucky. It's unbelievably unlucky. If that goes in, then I think Spurs then do actually hammer home that advantage and go and win it 3-1, and I think that's probably enough. I do think that would be enough, because I think Frankfurt would have to come out at us. I don't think they're the most solid defensively. I think we could go and draw that game or win that game away there. If that goes in, it's the fine margins again, and when you want to talk about fine margins, they don't get much finer than this. Bentancur, I thought, had a really good game. Much better than I've seen in recent weeks. He got his head on everything in that second half as well, with such a presence in the box. Gets his head on this, and Van der Ven, I mean, I don't know how this doesn't go in. I don't know how this doesn't go in. I really, really don't. And again, obviously, we had the Son chance where it was a good save. Straight after the Bergvall one, Bentancur hits the bar as well. Maddison has the one with the really good footwork in and around the box as well, where he forces the save. You know, on another day, Spurs win that. On any other day, and I think you can have a lot of positives to say about the performance, but I think the reason I feel flat is just because I don't feel like we've done enough, and it felt like a missed opportunity. But again, Lucas Bergvall, his ceiling is getting higher and higher week in, week out, and I think the improvement from those early Europa performances has been scary in my opinion. Absolutely scary. Again, I think we all knew the potential was there with him. We all did that. I spoke about him a lot during pre-season, a lot of the videos that I made. I said, I think this kid's going to become a starter quite quickly. That didn't quite happen. But since January, he has taken that chance. I think this is part of the reason why. One of the most complete packages of any young midfielder I think I've seen in the last 10 years in football. Genuinely. Like, there aren't many under 19, under 20 midfielders in the world that you're taking over this guy at the moment. It's honestly unbelievable. And I think this is part of the reason why, because I think, again, part of the reason why we are better off, like, obviously, last night the midfield was Bentancur, Maddison and Bergvall. Maddison, your kind of key creator, dictator in that team, obviously. But sometimes, although he's ahead of Bergvall in the play here, kind of just in front of that last line of Spurs' attack with Porro, who was picking up some very interesting positions yesterday. I thought Romero, actually, on a side point as well, did well again to really fire those and fizz those passes in between the lines to Porro, who's on the receiving end of it a lot of the time. Again, the structure felt a bit more like Ange Ball and what we wanted to do. But Bergvall here, they're obviously quite settled in that block, well-disciplined, well-coached, well-organised team. This is what I love about Bergvall, because he's got that athleticism and that bravery to just completely open the pitch up for Tottenham. Here, you can tell he's thinking about what he wants to do. He's got 2 men around him. Again, another man here who could put the pressure on. Again, another man here that he's got to get past eventually. Drops the shoulder, gets past the first two. Has to commit. These defenders don't really know whether to commit or not to Bergvall. Again, because they know his technical quality. They know he can make them look silly. But again, he decides to drive inside. Little body feint. And again here, it doesn't matter how tight he gets to these two defenders. He's coming in that space, 100%. He's doing it because he's got the physicality to shove people off. And that has completely opened it up for Tottenham. He's broken through in front of that last line of defence. And then they can play this ball out to Heung-Min Son into a crossing position. Again, with Bergvall in terms of breaking down a team that wants to sit in, I think Spurs have lacked actually that midfielder who is quickly going to switch the play and manipulate a low block and move a team from side to side to find that space. His weight of passing and his quality of passing like that, these kind of sprayed balls, there's another example I want to come on to. Again, but if you're talking about the whole package, the complete package, his defensive work again here, that awareness. He's just one of the most dialed in, concentrated footballers I've seen in a while as well, especially at Spurs. So focused. And I think sometimes that hyper focus can lead to a little bit of over exuberance and almost overexcitedness, I guess, if that's a word. And sometimes that can maybe lead him to be a little bit rash, but he is so focused. It's just unbelievable. And again, defensive work here, cutting that out. I didn't think this was great from Van der Ven, to be honest, to kind of let them get into this situation. Again here, his out of possession work, fantastic. That ability to just sweep up and intercept balls, he's so good at it. So good at it. Pounces in here to nick the ball back, high turnover. If a doggy, who I thought was great, gets on his bike there, gets on his bike and goes around the overlap, just sees that a little bit quicker, you can see, then he starts to go because Bergvall turns and realises he's got no options. He's got no options there because Son and Solanke are central of him, but he can't play that ball. He needed a doggy to go around the outside there and Spurs are in. And then again, final example, their quality and the weight of pass when you're trying to break down a team that kind of this settled with almost like 6 defenders on this last line. You can see Spence kind of pointing in for him to do it. Get the ball out to Tell quickly, who's a very good cross from that position. I actually think this was the cross where that Tell put in that was shanked behind and not given. I think some of the refereeing on display last night was really poor. But yeah, Bergvall again, I wouldn't actually even say he was the man of the match for Spurs, to be honest. He was definitely one of the best players. He probably was. I thought Bentancur was definitely up there as well, and Destiny Udogie too. But yeah, it's a lot of heart in that performance, and we were unlucky. And on any other day, I think we win it. And on any other day, I think you're looking at Spurs having a really good route to the final with, again, you can't write them off, obviously, but Bodo Glimt beating Lazio in the way that they did, it really opened up for Spurs. And if we'd have won that game 2-3-1, maybe like we should have, I'm not actually sure. I haven't actually checked what the expected goals was from last night. It was 0.94 from Spurs to Frankfurt's 0.36. So if you round that up to a 1-0 victory, Spurs can take a lot of, kind of confidence from having that lead. But maybe, again, that kind of reflects that we didn't create enough quality chances to truly win the game. Although I think on any other day, like that Bergvall one goes in, Bentancur hit the bar, goes in. Just is what it is. Just frustrating. But look, hopefully we can go to Germany and kind of defy the odds from a Spurs perspective, given our poor away record in Europe, and go and win. I'll actually be out there in Germany. And I'm not flying back until, I think, like 10 o'clock at night. So my match breakdown will be quite delayed. I'll try and do something, but make sure to keep an eye on my TikTok as well, because there'll be content on there from when I'm out in Germany. If you kind of want my thoughts on the game before and after initially, YouTube I'll be a little bit quieter because, like I said, I'm not coming back until the night after the game. So, but yeah, I'm going to do some stuff before next week as to how we can kind of go there and beat Frankfurt. So yeah, videos are back. Videos are going to be back more consistently from next week as well. Sorry, I've, again, not been super on it recently. I'm really glad you guys enjoyed the new manager breakdown video that I did with Seb and with Kish as well. That got a lot of love, so massively appreciate that. Drop a like on this video. Have a great weekend, and hopefully we get a good result against Wolves on Sunday as well. Up the Spurs.